So you just dropped into an Elden Ring, and you're going to be the next Elden Lord, which is apparently a thing you want to be for some reason. You've got your katana, because of course you do, you fucking weeb, and you're ready to go. Glory and infamy and power will be yours. Wait, what the fuck is that? And you're dead. Welcome to Dark Souls. Now, from here, the game gives you an interesting decision to make really early on. The game will give you some small indications of that decision and your need to make it using a few environmental tools. You can go down this way and get the tutorial, or you can head right for the door and get on with it. The game tells you this via environmental clues. The ghost by the pit, a message on the ground. The game is teaching you that it's not likely to give you pop-ups or explanations for every little thing. You're going to have to explore and interact with the world to understand it, and how and why it does that is a different conversation altogether from what we're going to cover here. The point is, you have options. You can skip and miss things if you're not really paying attention, and the game is not going to tell you or insist that you go through some tutorial that you don't want or need. In any case, if you jump down into the pit, the game is going to give you a tutorial on fundamental mechanics, backstabs, guard counters, poise, and your very first boss fight. It's a very simple and straightforward thing, so you can learn the gameplay loop and kind of be on your way. Of course, no human being has never actually gone down that pit because we're alpha chads, and we beeline straight for the door and go right into the lands between. And wow, look how pretty it is. And oh, look, there's a guy in a glowy thing. And we stroll up to the guy, and he tells us we're little punk bitches with no maiden. He tells us that the glowy thing will point us in the right direction of the castle we need to go to so we can deal with that whole maidenless issue. He tells us that this goop on our map is going to tell us where the universe wants us to go or something. I don't know, whatever. For a snide little fuckboy, this guy's actually pretty helpful. So we chill at the glowy thing, and we look at our map, and it says go northwest-ish kind of this way. And so you hop up and you start headed that direction, and you've got a little compass even, and that's nice. And oh, who's that guy? Oh, he's on a horse. He looks tough. Oh, he's got a little red bar, which means he's a tough enemy. Yeah, okay, you know, let's give it a shot. I can take it. Now, if you're stubborn, obstinate, set in your ways, determined to bash your head against every boss you see because that's how Dark Souls works, you probably had a bad time here. You probably pulled your hair out as you mulled about how this unfair boss encounter happens way too early. But of course, that's not you, surely. You looked around and saw a ton of space to the left and to the right, and maybe even the complete opposite direction. Is it possible to just go around this guy? So you pull out your best snake impression and you cruise right on past this boss. Easy. The game has just taught you an extremely important lesson about itself. There will be enemies that are too strong for you, but you could probably go around them and come back later when you're ready for that encounter. You still, at this point, don't even have the means to get stronger, so you should probably just skip this guy and keep headed the direction you were going. So maybe that's what you do. You see an encampment of guys, and you check your map, and hey, this kind of seems in the general direction of where I'm supposed to go. The yellow goop is not super helpful. It doesn't tell me exactly where I need to go. It just gives me a general direction. And so you look around and try to get your... Oh, hey, look! A little glowy thing. Let's try to make it to the glowy thing. So you navigate through the area. Maybe you go in guns blazing and you get overwhelmed and die when the toot-toot man blows his fucking horn and notifies the entire goddamn map that you're here. Maybe you sneak around, backstabbing soldiers, looting their shit. Maybe you notice the stairway leading down to a treasure chest with a super useful item, and maybe you don't. Maybe you notice the map kiosk in the middle of the road and you grab that, or maybe you don't. Eventually, you make it to the shiny thing and oh, yay, you get a full heal. Also, all those dudes you just killed are back. This is the game, again, introducing you to more of its mechanics. There may be significant distances between sites of grace, with many enemies and challenges and rewards along the way. The enemies will respawn when you rest. Sites of grace are really important checkpoints, and you should keep an eye out for them. If you've done a Dark Soul before, you already know this, but for many, this is their first foray into FromSoft games, and so this is a great learning experience for our little neophytes out there getting their logs wet with the blood of their enemies for the first time. So you do enough exploring in this area, and Melina shows up and tells you some stuff. She gives you your horse, she lets you level up, explains all the things that you need to do. Keep going north, there's a castle up that way, you'll learn more when you get there. And you pop open your map and, oh, cool, you have a new arrow pointing you in the right direction. That's cool. But hey, when I was running around, I think I noticed a little site of grace over yonder, in the opposite direction of where I'm quote-unquote supposed to go. And there's this road that goes that way. I wonder where that goes. But no, you say to yourself, I'm supposed to go north, I'm going north. So you go and you fight guys, and maybe you die and you throw a few levels into Dex because you're a weeby little samurai bitch and samurais go on Dex. You get to the site of grace and you walk up the hall and, oh cool, a cutscene.
Foul tarnished. In search of the Elden Ring. Emboldened by
Oh, this guy looks pretty...
ambition.
Oh, this guy... Hey, ow! Ow! Ow!
Ambitions to rest.
Wow, this dude kind of fucks. The game is now giving you another decision to make. You're at the castle, you're fighting a boss, he is clearly very strong. You may not be strong enough to beat him. Shortly thereafter, Mel takes you to Round Table Hold, where you meet the smith and you learn about weapon upgrades, because we skipped the merchant with the goddamn anvil that's like 20 feet away from the start of the game and explains. We learned that upgrades take resources and runes, but those upgrades are important and will make you a lot stronger. Okay, so where do I get these resources, these smithing stones? I already took the way all the way north as far as I could go and found everything that there is to find. You did everything right, you followed all the prompts, and now it's time to explore. It's time to get off the grid, cut the cord, make your own way in the world. No more spoon-fed hand-holding for you. But where do you go? And what do you do when you get there? The training wheels have been taken off. It's time to take what the game has taught you and apply it to a different emergent type of experience. I think even more than the first really challenging boss encounter, this resource gate is the first real barricade the game puts on you. You can grind these scrubs in the ruins or whatever for 20 hours and be over-leveled for that boss, but eventually even that's going to run out, and your weapon won't be sufficient for the tasks that come ahead of you without upgrades. The game is specifically designed to teach you that there are going to be places that are too much for you. There's going to be enemies that hit hard and make no apologies for it. If you find yourself in over your head, maybe it's time to back off, regroup, and head somewhere else. Anyone who ever found themselves going a little too far east knows you can learn this lesson very quickly. Sometimes you explore and get great loot and resources that are going to improve your build, and sometimes you get eaten by a chest and transported to Gary, Indiana. This early exploratory part of the game continues to teach you how to play the game. Enemies don't scale. They are what they are, and so are you. If this section of the game is too much for you right now, go a different direction. Come back when you're stronger. Or, hell, if you're feeling froggy, leave. Get on torrent and run around exploring anyway. So you've put some levels into your little weeb stick. You got some sick new armor you're never going to wear because samurai shit is just too cool for school. You cranked all of your levels into Dex because HP is for losers, and now it's time to make Magritte our bitch. This is not a boss fight, motherfucker. Oh, ow, fuck. Ow, ow. Ow. Wait, stop. No. You've been playing this game for 3.5 fucking hours, and the game is still teaching you things. Bosses are gonna be tough, even if you're appropriately leveled. You're gonna need to learn to fight them. You might have to do this many times. You're gonna learn patterns, find the right openings to attack and retreat. Some bosses have multiple goddamn phases because they're cheap fuckers and Miyazaki hates you.
These foolish ambitions to rest.
So what's the point of saying all of this? Well, if everything in the game scaled with you, then this entire gameplay concept just comes grinding to a screeching halt. Tree Sentinel? You're level 9? He's level 9. Yeah, it takes a few tries, you kill him, off you go. Margit, also level 15, just like you. Cool, you beat him in pretty short order. Off to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and now you're done. And then you go, hey Miyazaki, what gives, motherfucker? I was promised hours and hours and hours of open world gameplay, and I got 8 hours of fucking castles and knights. Why didn't you just call it Dark Souls 4 and ship it a couple years ago? The Winds of Winter fucking died for this. Static enemies and static stat blocks create the circumstances where the player is obligated to explore the world and experience its content. After I beat the game with my pure strength build Giga Chad, I decided to run through New Game Plus as quickly as I could. I went from obligatory boss to obligatory boss and finished my second run of the game in about 8 hours, bottlenecked only by forgetting where a few items were and having to trek across the map from point A to point B, back to point A again. I missed the vast majority of the content in the game because I didn't need to experience it. I one-taked Margit and Godric on this run, and the most takes I took on a single boss was 3 or maybe 4, because Radahn still sucks no matter how kitted you are. Even in my regular game, sometimes I'd come across an area I hadn't explored yet and realized I was a little overleveled for it. At one point I wanted Somber Stones and went into a mine to get them. The mine was mid-game content, I was late-game looted, and I strolled through it without breaking a sweat. And it was a bit of a relief, honestly, and a little affirming. I returned to an area that earlier would have been extremely challenging, and now I'm the boss fight. I got in, got my mats, clapped the boss, got out. It was a nice break from all the getting two-tapped by Astel, natural born of the void, because the camera won't point at anything I can fucking hit with my goddamn giant sword, you fucking son of a bitch. The leveling, progression, and lack of scaling in your enemies is specifically intended to get you to explore the game. It creates stakes and an incentive to level up your character and your weapons. It teaches you if you're interested in learning. And if you're not, you can spend hours and hours and hours and hours fighting Magritte until you finally beat him, and the game will let you do that. But it won't make it easy. It wants you to explore. It wants you to take on fights sometimes maybe you shouldn't. And it wants you to learn from that. Learn to attack and retreat, both in the game world and in boss fights. And it uses these challenging areas to push you in that direction. If you just look at game design as numbers, then sure, everything scaling to be just strong enough to challenge you is a matter of looking at your numbers and adding some numbers or changing things in the enemy stat block. But then what's even the point of leveling up? So you did 50 damage before, and you leveled up, and now you do 55. But now all of the enemies have 5 more HP to compensate for that. This is what people meant when they said Turk just wants to get rid of leveling up. Because with that variable scaling, you're effectively making leveling up and progression purely cosmetic in nature. You might find a new weapon you like or a spell you can use to suit your playstyle or give you an advantage in a challenging encounter. But in a sense, that defeats the point of scaling. Player and weapon levels do the same thing. Your build accentuates your playstyle, your weapon and gear choices, Ashes of War, even your spells if you're a big old wussy with no balls, all serve to even out odds that are, in a Dark Souls game, meant to be balanced against you. I could sit down at a blackjack table and just play the cards in front of me, but if I can get away with counting, I'm going to do that. Balancing for a linear game is, or can be anyway, pretty simple. The player is going to be in level range 10 to 15 in Area A, so enemies in this area will be a similar level. When the player moves on to Area B, they'll be level range 15 to 25, so you make enemies in that area of a similar level to that. The player is not likely to return to Area A anytime soon. If they do, it's going to be very, very late game for some side quests that they missed or an item that they need. They're going to keep moving through the new areas to progress the story. It's expected that you'll cruise through the enemies in the level 10 to 15 area when you're level 60. An issue with open world games is that you might walk through that area for the first time at level 60, or you might walk through a level 60 area while still level 10. And Elden Ring tries to avoid this by putting the real tough shit behind a few walls. Margit, Godric, the Academy, the Lift of Dectus, all these things that get in your way so you don't go too far too fast. It puts Khaled way, way, way the fuck out there. You've got to try really, really hard to get there before you're ready. Or just open the wrong chest because get fucked, welcome to Dark Souls. Is this perfect? I mean, obviously not. No game system is, not least of all a game system for a game this large, with build variety, 80-something bosses, 12 million people playing it, all with their own playstyles. But does it work better, in my opinion, for the specific type of game they're trying to make? I think absolutely. There's some interesting roguelike elements to FromSoft games. You play through, you lose and die, you get stronger and more competent each time you lose and die. You often unlock new options or abilities or weapons, whatever, as you go, until you finally confront and defeat an end-stage boss. I think that our understanding of common roguelike gameplay loops can inform our understanding of the Soulsborne gameplay loop, because in a lot of ways they are kind of similar, even if the mechanics are different. So let's compare this gameplay experience to one of the most played and enjoyed roguelikes out there, Slay the Spire. Let's say you fought the heart on floor 5 of a Slay the Spire run. You'd look at that and be like, this is kind of bullshit. You didn't have any time to build your deck, get stronger, get relics, do anything that can actually make the game winnable. You know, you didn't get to play the game. Now, imagine you fight the heart on floor 5, and the game decides to scale it down to be beatable with just strikes and defense. In that case, you'd feel a little cheated, right? What's the point of building a deck that can beat the heart if the heart is always beatable by whatever dumb bullshit you happen to have? Now, this comparison is obviously not perfect, and there are some other areas in which Elden Ring could be improved, but I don't think this is one of them in and of itself. The entire start of the game seems to be designed to indicate to you that things are the way they are for a reason, and so the game should be approached in a certain way. We don't yell at Slay the Spire for not scaling to the strength of our deck, so why are we perturbed that Elden Ring doesn't either? Now, I understand that you, specifically, want a consistent level of challenge throughout. And maybe on your next playthrough, since now you have a little bit more knowledge of the game, you'll be able to curate your own experience a little bit better. But honestly, consider how often you've complained about the challenge or lack thereof during 60 or 70, 80 hours of gameplay. I don't think it came up before today. On the whole, I think the game does a pretty good job of teaching you how to play, keeping things just within reach, and scaling with you without having to do it through programming or algorithm. It's just good game design. And yeah, occasionally you're going to find yourself in that mine, a little over-leveled, and having an easy time of it. But for the most part, you don't. Thank you for taking the time to watch/listen to this. I know it was really long, but I hope I made the case clear enough. Bye.
smoldering with thy meager flame.